is Mabe, and I am one of the co-founders of the Rural Ontario Community of Queer Youth. We were co-founded in June of 2021. I participated in a research participation project through CAMH that was researching about queer youth's experiences who have accessed mental health care during the COVID-19 pandemic. And we discussed different barriers that we had faced, and one of the barriers that different youth had faced was rural access to queer and trans resources, rural access to mental health care resources, and rural access to affirming and mental health resources that could understand and support queer and trans youth. So after that, we decided that we wanted to create our idea into a reality. So we hosted a series of care and wellness workshops on different themes. Created an art zine, and I went to different rural prides across the province. And I've just been doing work for rural queer communities since then as well, in other ways. And one important point that I wanted to touch on is the importance of intersectionality when we think about marginalized identities. As we can think that all identities that are marginalized experience isolation, but once you add in other layers of intersections, it can become more and more isolating for the people. So not just we through research, people know that queer and trans folks experience isolation, especially youth. And we also know that people in rural communities experience social isolation, especially the more remote those communities become. But there is a great lack of research on isolation for this specific population of rural queer folks. And then once you add in other layers to identities such as disability, class, and race, people can become more and more isolated within society. And so I just wanted to share a poem with you that I had written. And it's called A Wildflower Dreams of Queer Futures. And it talks a lot about suicide rates for queer and trans populations, as well as part of my own lived experience. The child in me was a dandelion, bright yellow, fitting into neither pink nor blue norms of the gender binary. The thing about weeds is they're only weeds if they are considered to be growing unwanted. The queer child in me with grass stains and skin knees was made to believe that they too were growing unwanted. Cut down and picked on to make smaller. Excluded from bouquets of flowers. I never did fit in with the girls, nor did I fit in with the boys either. A drifter, shapeshifter, wandering and wondering what garden I'll be able to call my home. A daydreamer, wanting and pondering about the future I would one day know. It is a fact that more than half of transgender and non-binary youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. Remembering everyone that has said anything queerphobic to me and holding inside my bones constricting. Believing that one day it gets better when I'm older and can move to the city to finally be queer because queer folks don't belong in the country. That's just not something folks could be here. Queer suicides normalized. I was traumatized. We need to realize what can support trans lives and stop the lies they're fed to believe. It is a fact that trans youth who are allowed to use their chosen name experience a 65% decrease in suicide attempts. It is a fact that trans youth who have their pronouns respected by all or most people in their lives attempted suicide at half the rates of those who did not. Call me a flower, don't call me a weed. Use they, them pronouns to refer to me, not inanimate pronouns as I am living. It took years. Years of slowly coming out. Years of slowly coming into myself. By the end of my high school years, I had built up enough confidence to love myself, but I still struggled to love my queer self. I wanted to be the perfect ally while still wishing I wasn't queer myself. The first Pride I ever attended was Toronto World Pride 2014, when I was 18 years old. That day was a day I'll never forget. I hung out with a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend and chatted on their apartment lawn as we all drank and smoked weed. The deep connection I felt with these genderqueer beauties who were proud to be transformed me. This was my first time meeting people who I could envision myself to be. It is a fact that having at least one accepting adult can reduce the risk of a suicide attempt amongst LGBTQ youth by 40%. I found ways to grow through the cracks of pavement, found ways to grow in a garden amongst flowers planted, found ways to grow even when I was made to feel unwanted. To make sure my presence was bold and known that I'll continue to exist in this genderqueer body of mine, coloring outside the lines of what is acceptable. The worlds of rainbows shine through my sweat and tears. The lion in me roared as I continued to survive, found ways to thrive. I stayed alive. I was 22 when I finally cut my hair short again, came out as genderqueer on my Instagram, living halfway around the world in a supportive community. I was terrified but felt like I was finally setting myself free from over a decade of shame I had held inside my body. Me. Living proudly as non-binary is me giving a hug to my childhood self, holding them in my arms tight and letting them know everything is going to turn out alright. Not in a it gets better way, but in a you are fucking resilient and fierce and beautiful for existing way. It is a fact. The 67% of transitioning people thought about suicide pre-transition, only 3% post-medical transition. I'm standing here center stage more than my wildest dreams believed I could ever achieve. I'm alive, I'm present, I am here, and sure as fuck, I'm queer. I'm queer in the country where my rural roots ground me, creating communities so all rural queer youth can feel a sense of belonging, without feeling as though they must leave and head to the city. You can take the queer kid out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the queer kid. You can't take the country out of me. And now my wildest dreams are that every queer youth can have stories of happy queers, so they can believe their life is beautiful because of their queerness, not despite their queerness. It's a fact. The transgender youth who have fully socially transitioned to their gender and have been supported in doing so do not have elevated depressive symptoms compared to everyone else. Let the lion in me roar as I transition into a white flower full of seeds. Let the wind pick me up and carry me. Let me fly in the sky and land wherever the wind takes me. You may bury me, but I will grow again, bring new life, let my wishes fly high. Let there be a garden of wildflowers who were once made to believe that they were weeds. Let them grow and make their home together. Let them be each other's family. Let them nourish the butterflies who transform through metamorphosis. Let them nourish the bees making sweet honey. Let them enrich the soil through their gifts uniquely. Let none of their petals be love-me-nots. Let them thrive. In all the ways I dream of a future where trans lives are celebrated and embraced, where trans youth feel at home in their bodies, and I, in my childhood's wildest dreams, that I could survive in all glory, genderqueer beyond belief. And I pray to thank God for the gifts they have given me, queerness being the most beautiful gift of them all. Thank you.